Hey everybody, it's AI Joelle yet again. Here's an update. From here on out, some episodes may have video and audio, but some will be just audio. We hope you'll stick with us during this change. On the bright side, we're now available on Spotify. Alrighty then, back to the show, and may the 4th be with you. Please mind the gap. Hi everybody, welcome to the Please Mind the Gap podcast, and this is our very first special edition episode, is what I'm calling it, because we're releasing it a couple days early because of one of my favorite holidays, May the 4th be with you, which, by the way, May the 4th be with you, everyone.
Which is right one day before
Revenge of the 5th? Oh, Cinco de Mayo. My bad. My bad. Yes.
Wow. Okay, yes.
An official holiday as opposed to like a fan-made one.
Okay.
And the birthday of one of Joseph's best friends is May the 4th.
Maybe. I don't know who you're talking about.
I'll tell you afterwards. But
Okay,
anyway.
cool.
So we are a family who really likes Star Wars. And were you going to say something? I was just going to say, so we wanted to do a Star Wars themed episode for a while now. That was definitely something that was on our to-do list. And so we were like, what better time to do it other than May the 4th? So I hope you guys are celebrating in whatever way you like to celebrate. But we're going to talk all about our favorite Star Wars things, travel into areas where we disagree. And then we're going to end with a little trivia. Feel free to play along at home as well. But
first, something totally not Star Wars related.
Okay.
Did you know
Okay.
that your alma mater was featured in the Wall Street Journal recently?
Spring Valley or Ben Lippen?
No, where you got your undergrad and your master's degree.
Oh,
from.
Winthrop University.
All right. So, allow me to read.
What is this ancient device
From-
and technology?
Winthrop University in Rock Hill, South Carolina, recently awarded scholarships to a pair of extremely talented high school
Students.
cornhole players.
I mean, it's their money. They can do what they want with it. But
So,
that's...
let
I
me-
just...
let
I
me-
want to
let
know
me-
where you got a physical copy
da.
of the Wall Street Journal.
I was reading the Wall Street Journal. Here.
Most
just-
people do it online.
Well, it was free at the hotel that I was staying at. But listen, Winthrop, a Division I school which does not have football. I didn't realize that. They didn't have a football
Yeah,
team?
Winthrop nor Anderson have football teams. Yeah.
Okay, has already made a major investment in video gaming esports,
Yes.
where it is
I remember
now
that.
a national power. Athletic director Chuck Ray talks excitedly about Winthrop's plan to assemble a drone racing team, which makes a lot of sense to me, which he says will overlap with the school's computer science and business programs. It costs universities a lot of money to be a Division I program, he said. We're almost resetting what sports can be. Cornhole, which has its annual collegiate championships in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina,
That I did know.
made a lot of regional sense. It was a natural flow, taking something that was in the area and making something for men and women who have interest in pursuing their craft. So the two cornhole recruits were actually their teammates from a high school in Colorado, and they are nationally ranked already in the official
Cornhole database.
what's it called? Yeah, there's some the American Cornhole League. Yeah. So, and they're on their way to Winthrop. So Winthrop is making history as the first school to offer cornhole scholarships.
I mean, that's interesting. Part of me is like, pop off, it's a sport. Like, we might as well recognize more alternative sports. But then part of me is like, I don't know. That money could be... I don't know. I feel neutral about it, but I'm also like, yay for scholarships. Because as I am learning as an adult, school is expensive.
Okay.
School in America, let me correct. In America,
Unless
school
you're
is
an
expensive.
educator and part of the expense of that school is going to pay your salary, then And
You
is
mean
also
like,
paying for the facilities and the stuff that you are working with.
you mean like in the military?
No, you were saying school is expensive and you
Yeah,
don't
as a
like it.
collegiate student.
Right. So I was saying if you're an educator, then say, hey, everybody come to school for $5. The fact that the school is costing a lot means that actually the school can afford to pay you a decent salary and afford to put you in decent facilities and afford to do a lot of things that makes your life as an educator
To an extent,
better.
but I want to say there is a bit of a disparity between like the egregious amount of money that students pay versus like the money that's allocated to certain programs. We're getting off topic for Star Wars, but I guess we'll talk about educational zoning and billing in a different
So the
episode.
fact that a football coach in a state school gets paid maybe $8 million a year.
Oh, I guess we'll go on this tangent for a little bit.
But the football program actually brings in millions and millions and millions of dollars for the school if the football program is successful. If it's not, then the school spends millions and millions on the football program, which is why they fire the coach if you have a losing season. They're like, okay, you're out. You're done. Bye. Go away.
So, I will merely put this note out there, and then we'll actually talk about Star Wars.
Please.
In a particular school district in South Carolina,
That will remain unnamed.
correct, a starting salary for an athletic director at a middle and/or high school is the equivalent of what I, as someone with the master's degree, would get as a teacher after working for 15 plus years. If you were an educator who had just a bachelor's degree, you would never get to the point of the starting salary for an athletic director. Now, I'm not saying that athletic directors deserve to be homeless. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's interesting the disparity between the two and how vast it is when we could, pay teachers more. We should all get paid more. I don't think that is that actually is a controversial statement. Some people believe that it's okay to be like, I had to struggle, so you have to too kind of mentality. It's very strange. But I recently was talking to someone at work about it, and they were like, wait, how much do athletic directors make in such and such a school district? And I was like, let me look. And then I compared, and I was like, oh, I would have to work 15 plus years to even get there. And if you were the vast majority of educators and you have just a bachelor's degree, you wouldn't get to the starting pay of an athletic director at a middle and or high school.
There is a lot that could go into that conversation.
But we're getting off topic.
We may need to save that for another day. So
Yeah.
Star Wars.
Yay!
Let's hear it. Take it away.
Cool. So, I do want to begin calling a little bit of attention to our setup before we get into questions. You might have noticed in the past couple episodes a particular character regularly featured on earrings that I wear, and that is the character of Grogu, aka, Baby Yoda or whatever, comes from the Mandalorian show. These are classroom decorations of mine back when I was teaching. And The Bad Batch is one of my favorite TV shows. It is the successor to Clone Wars, the 3D series, not the 2D series, and Rebels. We'll get into that.
3D versus 2D?
So I guess we'll talk about it.
What?
So Star Wars, Clone Wars.
No, we'll get into that. Continue on your...
So the short version of that is...
These kids these days with their Star Wars. Okay, go ahead. Fire it up. We're minding the gap today, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, it's quite apparent.
Yeah,
the Star Wars Clone Wars TV show, there was a version that came out before 2008 that was 2D animated. It was like cartoons, and it's considered a micro series. I can't remember whether or not it was on Cartoon Network.
People watched on...
Careful.
Television?
Probably. It also came out, I believe, in comic book form. And then the Star Wars Clone Wars movie came out in 2007 or 2008. I can't remember. 2008. And then the 3D series, that is one of the longest running series of all Star Wars dumb, Star Wars The Clone Wars, came out on Cartoon Network.
And was projected via holograms in the middle of a hologram, because it's 3D.
No, I mean that the animation, instead of being this is what 3D is. Instead of like flat, cartoony looking, they are more three-dimensional looking. I'm not arguing with you. Anyway, so starter question. If you could be anyone in the Star Wars universe, who would you be? Another way to ask this question is plug yourself in the Star Wars universe. You don't have to be like, I want to be Mace Windu, but like, what would you be? Would you be a Jedi? Would you be a Sith? Would you be just a merchant? Would you be a bounty hunter? Is there a particular species that interests you? What, if you were to be in the Star Wars universe, where would you plug yourself in?
I'd probably... So, the fact that I enjoy flying so much...
Oh, well,
and the fact that...
Are you going to be a smuggler?
I probably could be Han Solo. I could probably be... I'm not quite... I wouldn't necessarily want to be the suave Lando Calrissian type of...
Don't lie to yourself. Don't lie to yourself. You know what's up.
I'd be more along the lines of the scoundrel that likes to pretend or has the outward appearance of being a scoundrel and a scruffy looking nerf herder, but underneath is just, you don't know that reference, do you?
No, what's a nerf herder?
Wow.
Who herds nerf guns?
Again. Oh, wow. The gap.
Who herds nerf guns?
That is a direct quote.
Okay.
Direct quote. Anyway, yeah, so I would probably... the thing is that Han Solo is a good guy. He acts like I don't really care about other people. I'm just in it for the money. I'm just in it for myself. But he actually has a conscience. And he actually helps people. And he actually is...
Behind a paywall.
He's a very, very loyal person to his friends and stuff, too. So I'd probably be a Han Solo-ish character.
So a smuggler.
Yes,
a pilot
smuggler,
you know.
But smuggling as a way of resistance against the evil empire.
Oh, okay. So, yeah. Like,
not just smuggling to be illegal, to be like, hey,
no, but like smuggling for a cause.
Man, you want to buy some
spice? But not to be confused with the spice of the Dune world. But yeah. Why do we...
All right, so you're not going to answer the question?
Oh, sorry. I would like to be...
Jar Jar.
No. I feel like if I were in the Star Wars universe, I know it's basic to be like, I'd be a Jedi. I wouldn't be a Jedi just because, like, one of my favorite characters, Ahsoka Tano, I don't align myself with every one of their beliefs and principles. I think it would be cool to be, like, a Force wielder who just spends their life studying the ways of the Force and just like travels to different planets and travels to different cultures, and it's like, how does this culture learn about the Force? How does this like a researcher?
For example, in Rogue One, the dude that was blind, that
Donnie Yen, that's not his name.
The Force is with me.
He was a monk, right?
With the Force is with me. Yeah, but he'd used the Force, right? So he wasn't a Jedi, but he was Force sensitive and used the Force.
I would want to be a Force researcher, and I would want to just like write a book about all the different, ways you can use the Force and study it and just travel around the galaxy, just watching people do stuff. So that's what I would do. What is something that we like about the Star Wars universe? Like, why do we like Star Wars?
Well, the appeal to me, I think originally was all the cool flying and space fighting scenes, but then also I would say the character development in the original movies. I thought it was well written. It was well done. It was believable. especially the interaction between Han and Leia, for example. Just kind of how that unfolded over the course of the first three movies. I thought that was really well done, and it was an engaging story, and just the possibilities of this entire other world and universe. So Tolkien had created another world, and there was sort of a small group of people. Sort of, I don't know how super popular the Tolkien world was before the movies came out, and then really exploded into, I mean, a lot of people had heard of the Lord of the Rings before. A lot of people had read The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and there were some hardcore fans and stuff. And it was another world, so that was kind of okay.
I don't
cool.
think
There's
it
another
was
world.
mainstream though.
Right, it wasn't really mainstream until that. And so the Star Wars universe though became mainstream from the get-go. And people were like, whoa, this idea of an entirely different universe with all these species and with all this history and with this, it's just a whole way to enter into a completely, to separate from a lot of the cares and frustrations and disappointments of this world. And people were like, oh yeah. I mean, there's danger and there's evil and there's stuff in this other world. But I think a lot of people gravitated toward, I'd like to just pull myself away from this world and think about this other world. So what was interesting too, I mentioned all the flying and stuff. I knew that it was unrealistic. So in Star Trek, the way that no, I'm gonna explain what I mean.
No, I'm saying there's like a whole universe out there. We don't know what's out there. Never mind. Continue.
I'm talking about the way that spacecraft move.
Oh, well then I can't speak to it because you have the rocket science degree. So
Star Trek, the way that spacecraft move, generally speaking, they're like, and they kind of slowly move in one direction, and then if they turn, it's sort of a very gradual thing and whatever. Star Wars, the way that things moved, you really are only going to be able to create that kind of movement inside an atmosphere, and where you can have control surfaces that are immediately causing the changes in direction of forces and stuff. In space, because you don't have any drag on in any direction, you just, if you start an acceleration in this direction, it's going to keep moving in that direction until you decelerate in that direction. And then if you start an acceleration in other direction, it's going to start moving in that direction, but it's not going to. So you can't just. So the way that X-wings are doing all of that, that's not realistic. You're not going to have spacecraft that can do that. Sorry.
Rocket science with Loren.
So I knew it was unrealistic, but it instilled in me, or it fed my fascination with and my desire to fly like that. So yes, I liked Top Gun and stuff, but outside of Top Gun, I got a lot of my flying fix from watching Star Wars, the early Star Wars space battles.
But you don't like pod racing.
I don't dislike pod racing, sure.
Because that's very like...
Yeah. Fine.
Okay.
Pod racing, rock on.
Okay.
Good to go.
Oh, okay. I thought you just didn't like it. What I like about Star Wars is I am very fascinated by world building and by just entering into a place that is entirely different from my own and just seeing what all is out there. And Star Wars it's a whole galaxy. It's so expansive and huge, and there's so many different types of people, so many different ideas, so many different species. I just like observing the reality of it. Not the reality, the variety is the word I mean. I love observing the variety, which is why when we talk about our favorite pieces of media, my favorite piece of Star Wars media is one that I would argue, focuses more on world building, on like, hey, let's go check out over here what's happening. Let's go look over here what's happening. Look at these new people, new stuff.
Yeah, the depth of cultures.
Yes,
not just
love.
one culture,
Love.
but multiple different cultures. Yeah, when you start digging into Mandalorian
I would
history
love to
and
be
culture and tradition, and
like
stuff.
what is it, an anthropologist in this universe? Because you
Yeah,
could
yeah.
just study and write up on all sorts of stuff. And I think that would be so, so cool.
So this is gonna come up later, but this is why you would thoroughly appreciate Timothy Zahn. Because
Yeah.
the depth of which he goes into different cultures in there and weaves them into the storyline is...
I have no qualms with him whatsoever.
But you still haven't read the books.
Well, reading is difficult for me because I have ADHD. Reading is hard.
And they are in audiobook form as well.
I have heard one of them in audiobook form because you played it on
Not
one
all
of
the
the
way
many
through.
road trips we were on.
Yes, you heard parts of it.
I couldn't tell you which book it was, though, but it was interesting. But anyway, that leads us into our final little question until we get into an area where we somewhat disagree. The question is, what is your favorite piece of Star Wars media? Is it a movie? Is it a TV show? Is it an episode of a TV show? What is your favorite piece of Star Wars media?
Oh, by all means, the original Star Wars movie, Episode 4.
Oh, yeah.
It by itself was a fantastic movie, and it stood alone by itself as a great movie.
It is a complete story.
It is a
Ba-da-bum.
complete story.
Yeah.
And it's really great, and it opens up the door for a whole bunch of things. Really well done, especially for the technology that was available at the time.
Hand-drawn laser bolts, I don't understand.
Yeah.
Hand-painted backgrounds?
It was impressive. It was really,
Miniatures?
really impressive. Yeah.
Crazy.
So yeah, that's that. I would say that's my favorite.
Yeah. I'm aware that for people of a certain age, what I'm about to say is considered controversial. But what?
Or flat out heresy.
Yes, some people would say that what I am about to say is heresy and blasphemy in the highest order. But
Then don't say it.
I'm going to, because it is true for, it is...
It is your truth?
No. 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 It is the truth.
Woo!
I don't like
The
that
truth,
phrase.
according to Joelle. Let's hear it.
My favorite piece of Star Wars media is the Star Wars Clone Wars TV show that started in 2009 and ended in 2021. Something like that. And the reason why I like it is because of, as I mentioned earlier, how much it expands on different cultures and different experiences. It talks about the Force in ways that none of the previous movies have talked about. You get a lot of character development, and I'm introduced to my favorite Star Wars character. You would think it's Grogu. Grogu's a very close second. But it introduced me to my favorite Star Wars character, who is Ahsoka Tano. You would think that I would have Ahsoka Tano merch.
You would think so.
I have a pin of her on my work hat, and I have a sticker of her
You have
on
a
my
sticker
car.
on the car, yeah.
That says Ahsoka lives. But seeing her and her journey, and then learning about her people and their culture, and then if you watched, Disney Plus really should have sponsored this episode, because we're going to talk about stuff that's on Disney Plus. If you watch Tales of the Jedi, which is on Disney Plus, that delves more into Ahsoka's story as it parallels with Count Dooku's. Very interesting. The day this comes out, May 4th, we get the other end of that called Tales of the Empire, where we get stories about Thrawn and, who's the other person? Barriss Offee? The green lady who betrayed Ahsoka Tano. Spoiler alert, but not really. And was part of the reason why Ahsoka left the Jedi Order, was because of how Barriss backstabbed her. But I am so into world building. Yeah.
In your world of new stuff or whatever, does the Mara Jade character ever appear?
To my knowledge, no, but I'm sure she could. and we'll get into why that's the case.
Are you aware of who Mara Jade is?
Is she not a child of one of like either Luke or Leia or Han or something? No?
No. Okay. Never mind.
Okay. To my knowledge, no. But again, we'll get into why I'm sure she is going to pop up or could pop up at any time. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoy Star Wars Clone Wars, and I thoroughly enjoy a lot of the TV series, I would say more than the movies, because it's just, I get to spend more time in the world. You know, I get 6 hours as opposed to 1 or 2. I get to really sit in it and marinate in it and travel through. So that's why I enjoy a lot of the series more than the movies. There is absolutely no shade to the 9 movies. Well, a little bit of shade.
9, aren't there?
I'm talking about like 1 through 9. A little bit of shade to the latter 3, to the most recent 3, a little bit of shade. But like the original 6, I have 0 problems for. What do you mean original 6? You want me to say original 3 and then the prequels and then the sequels?
Yeah, most people are like the prequels and then the last 3.
You know that's primarily a Gen X thing?
No.
Gen Z is a little more forgiving. Gen Z also really likes pod racing.
That was one scene in one of the
And
movies.
we like Maul. A character of mine that I very much enjoy.
That was the Phantom Menace.
Jaw?
Sure.
Love Maul. He's one of my favorite assassin/villains.
Right. So that movie was like, okay. And then it just went down from there. So the next 2 were just...
Here's the thing.
Everybody was like, what?
Are there people in Gen Z who like the prequels? Yes. We're not going to say they're Oscar worthy. We're not going to say they are worthy of like critical acclaim for amazing writing. It's just more that we enjoy them. But we're not saying like, this is quality screenwriting deserving of all awards.
So before we continue, let me bounce back to my favorite piece of media thing. Mm-hmm. And again, you mentioned really audiovisual media, but of course I would have to include in that. I'm torn between the original movie and actually the first Timothy Zahn trilogy of books, because they are phenomenal, and they delve so much more in depth into the whole Star Wars universe, and they perfectly align with the original characters and story and intent and everything of the original. A lot of the other prequels and sequels and stuff, you're like, what? That doesn't line up at all. That's what in the world.
Yeah.
But
tis a little odd.
The first Timothy Zahn trilogy, I don't remember what the trilogy's called. It might be called Heir to the Empire trilogy, but at least one of the books is called Heir to the Empire. Mm-hmm. But great stuff. Great stuff.
Interesting.
Lots of world building. All right.
Which I probably should get into, but reading is hard. Anyway, so I included a little section about the history of canon, because this is something that we have disagreed on, because to you, you're like, it's all fake, canon is fake, whatever, it's all fake. And I'm like...
Canon is relative.
It used to be in the Star Wars universe.
Well, enlighten us all
about canon. This is something that I, researched, in preparing for this episode. And because of my research, I understand why it was reset. It's not very often in IP is the term I'm thinking of right now, in like established worlds, that you reestablish canon, because most people just want to stick with what they know. But as we will get into, it started to get really, really confusing.
So restarting the Spider-Man story 3 or 4 times with different actors. And then they were like, hey, you know what?
Let's put them all together.
We're going to bring it all together and just say it was a multiverse, which actually was rather brilliant.
I think it was cool.
Yeah.
What else is Tobey Maguire doing these days? Yeah. Well, anyway.
Okay.
So, in the beginning, there was the original 3 movies. The well-beloved original 3 movies that George Lucas was very, very proud of. In 1994, the term gospel or canon was introduced to refer solely to those first 3 films. It also included any adaptations like novelizations or radio dramas. Those were considered canon too. Everything else was, quote, officially licensed source that may or may not agree with George Lucas's vision of the Star Wars trilogy.
It's a lot of quotey quotes going on the whole time.
So there was other stuff happening, you know, like
there was.
A very simplified term could be fan fiction. Like people were just writing other things. And at the time, you know, in the 90s, they were like, it's whatever. We just have our 3 movies and everything is great. And George originally was like, hey guys, I'd love for you guys to write about this universe. It doesn't just belong to me. Everybody can write about it.
I'm guessing he was getting some amount of kickback, some amount of percentage of the royalties.
Well, we're going to get into that.
It was
Lucas licensing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to get to that. So, however,
do you have any idea how many authors were writing Star Wars books like in the 90s?
I don't have an exact number, but it must have been so much for them to reset the canon because, I mean, kind of jumping ahead, basically, the books spread out so wildly.
There were dozens.
And they were starting to contradict with the original story. And and every time that people would come up to either Lucas or the person that they hired to try to put it all together named Leland Chee, so many times they were like, well, it's kind of sort of canon, but not really canon, but kind of sort of, but not really. And it was really, really confusing, and it was kind of all over the place. I
think it was in college that
just
for distraction and just de-stressing, I was reading a lot of Star Wars books that were out there, and some of them were like, meh, it's entertaining, but it's okay, and some of them were, it's just not good,
right.
And a few of them were like, wow, okay, I enjoyed that.
Yeah. That's most fan fiction. Most of it is meh, and only a couple gems.
A lot of them out there.
Yes.
And then the Timothy Zahn series dropped, and the skies parted, and anyway,
for you.
Go ahead. For many people.
For many people, I know. I shouldn't. I mean, heck, some of his characters are canon now. And some of the books of his are canon now. And a lot of these authors from the 90s and early 2000s, their books aren't. As we just mentioned, though, things got crazy. There was a whole bunch of stuff going on, and there was competing timelines and this, that, and the other thing. And so stories got really complicated. Fans created, like, Bibles and charts, and they tried to, but it was just so much. The term quasi-canon?
I remember that to some degree.
Yeah.
So in some of the books that were published, little paperbacks, and in the back of the books, there would be, here's sort of a semi-timeline, and here's all the, here's the 38 books that our particular publishing house has put out, and sort of here's where they fit into the whole timeline of things and whatever.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Grogu, let him eat a snack. In 1998, the term quasi-canon was introduced to describe anything outside of the original canon, being the first 3 movies and any like novelizations or audio dramas. Now, Leland Chee, I mentioned him. In 2000, Lucasfilm hired him to take all the stuff and put it into a database called the Holocron. And he came up with the... What?
They came up with it. That's what they called it, the holocron.
Well, a holocron is an actual thing in the Star Wars universe. Do you know what a holocron is?
Do you know?
No, but do you know what a holocron is?
I have not come across that term before.
So, I don't know if the Star Wars Clone Wars TV show / Rebels created the physical object of holocrons because of this. But now that I'm saying it out loud, I think they did. So a holocron is basically a object that's imbued with a lot of information. It's like a flash drive, but it has to be unlocked either if it's a Jedi holocron, it's a Jedi. If it's a Sith holocron, it has to be unlocked by 2 Sith, not 1. Because one of the rules of the Sith is there's always a master. I'm actually not going to say the other part of that because that's a question that we have later. I'm glad I caught myself. But anyway, Leland Chi creates this holocron, and it is very extensive, and there's like 6 or 7 different levels of canon, including like T canon or G canon or C canon, and it's only slightly...
What do those stand for? Okay.
I think G might have been like George Lucas canon, but it only made things slightly less confusing because there's just so much going on. In 2001, the books by Lucas Licensing were considered canon, but with variants allowed, which is a very strange concept to be like, it is canon, even though a bunch of these are different. That's very, very strange. In 2001, Lucas described his films and all of the other books that were going on. He said they were parallel universes. And he was like, I've got my stuff and my stuff's here, but then everybody else has their stuff over there. Which caused, again, a lot more questions. What do you mean parallel? Is it parallel? Is it a multiverse? Like, how is it? Blah, blah, blah.
It's fiction.
People seem to care a lot about what is considered real or not in a fictional world. There was...
Wait, say that again. People care a lot about what's considered real or not
in a fictional world,
in a fictional world.
Yes.
Which is why there were people that got bent completely out of shape when the live action Little Mermaid was played by someone of color.
Because
they were
originally
like, no, that's so not realistic.
Because it's like, Scandinavian.
It's fiction.
But it's also...
It's a mermaid. Well, it's something that doesn't exist.
Dad.
But people really got bent out of shape about that.
So here's the thing.
Anyway, back to Star Wars.
The main reason why the Ariel thing is dumb is not because... It's because she's a fish. And that her race doesn't matter to the story. Mulan is a relatively fictional story, kind of. But if you put any other person of color in there, it would be weird because that story is very importantly to, like, ancient China. But Ariel's a fish that doesn't need to be Scandinavian or whatever. But anyway, a lot of people, a lot of my notes, it was just confusion. And there were so many articles and interviews where I was going through where there were so many different answers to different questions. And I'm glad that I was not cognizant of canon at this time because it's very, very confusing. People began to separate movie canon from, like, Lucas licensing canon and be like, so there's the movies, and we're just going to keep those there, and then everything else is its own thing. That's where the term extended universe comes from. We don't use that term anymore, but that's where it comes from. In 2008, Lucas said, all right, guys, here's my take. You got my movies. You've got the licensed stuff that's under, like, Lucasfilm licensing. And then you've got whatever else is going on, like fan fiction or other things that people are doing. They are separate. And he said, it's okay that they don't necessarily match up.
How much of this was he getting paid for?
I'm sure a good bit. It's
like
Lucas
the
licensing.
Stuff that's outside of Lucas licensing, but is still Star Wars stuff. Was he still getting some percentage of that?
No. So in order for him to get paid, it needs to be under Lucas licensing because that's how you get the rights.
But there's no copyright stuff if you start telling a story about the Star Wars universe using characters that he created and all that kind of stuff. That sounds
that gets into fan fiction territory because there are plenty of people who write fan fictions about...
It wasn't fan fiction. These are professional authors writing published stuff.
That's a lawsuit then because you're publishing something.
So everything, all the other stuff that was out there other than fan fiction, he was getting a cut of.
If it was under Lucasfilm licensing, yes.
Okay. Anyway,
there's a reason why he's incredibly rich. Yeah. So, this is a lot of stuff that's in a lot of different areas. And then we have the merger. This is 2012, when Disney bought Lucasfilm. And that is also when everything was reset under the guidance of the Lucasfilm Story Group. So they are the, quote, Jedi Council or whatever. They decide what is and what isn't. And they put out an official, statement about what is and what isn't. And what they said was, obviously, the original 6 movies, those were Lucas, those are canon. Anything that we, Lucasfilm Licensing, produce after April 25th, 2014, if we make it and it's licensed by us, it is canon. The Star Wars Clone Wars TV show and the movie that came before that, that is considered canon because, again, those were produced by George Lucas. Basically, if Lucas touches it himself physically, not inspired by it, but like his hands are in it, it's canon. Previous books that align with the story are considered canon. So any of them that were way too out there, they're no longer considered canon. But I bet some of the Timothy Zahn books are, if you say they follow very closely with the events of some of the movies.
Not the events of the later movies.
Of 9, of like 8, 7, 8, 9? Well, yeah, because those came out afterwards.
No. Even
the prequels?
Yeah,
There's an official list on the Star Wars website of everything. There's an official list. So everything that is not canon now is labeled Legends instead of Extended Universe. And the Lucasfilm Story Group reserves the right to pick and like pluck things from Legends, aka the character of Thrawn. Is probably the most notable one where they were like, that guy's cool. We want to use him now. Where we get into a little bit of question is video games. Because to my knowledge, all of them were not canon, but then some of them, it's like they take place in canon events, like during Order 66 or something. I'd have to do more research on that, but usually no. Here are some things that are definitely not canon. Lego stuff. Like Lego Star Wars stuff. Like that's not canon. Most of the comic books that came out, again, before April 25th, 2014. There's a couple of exceptions, again, that are on the website, including one that I really want to read one day. It's about Maul, and it was supposed to be a whole Clone Wars episode. But do you remember that Star Wars Clone Wars went bankrupt for a little bit? And that's why they stopped?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
What?
So they were going, this was up until season 7. Nope, 6. And they were gonna keep going, but then for some reason their funding got pulled, and so they had to stop midway through season 6. That's why it's shorter than the other ones. But somehow before the pandemic, they got their money back, and they were able to come out with season 7, which is an excellent season.
So what studio was behind it? You're saying the studio went bankrupt, or just the show?
For whatever reason, they didn't have enough money.
Okay.
Which is weird because they were selling so many toys and lots of copies and stuff. So I don't know why. I mentioned that to say there's a comic book about Darth Maul that was supposed to be an episode, but then they were like, let's actually turn this into a comic. Therefore, that's canon.
Okay.
Short stories that came out like back in the day, twould be a no. Reference books, coloring books, that kind of thing, twould be a no. Any kind of crossovers like the Phineas and Ferb episode, Star Wars cross. Have you seen that one? It's actually pretty good.
I think so.
Doofenshmirtz sings a wonderful song about, I probably can't sing it because YouTube, but he sings a song about, a Sithinator.
Yeah.
Yeah. Visions is not canon, but I highly recommend everyone watching and you see it anyway. Because have you seen any of the Visions? Or only a little bit of season?
No,
None.
I don't think so. I
highly recommend. So why I like Visions so much, again, you can catch them on Disney Plus, and I wish they were paying us to say this. Visions is just world building. Even though it's not canon, it's like, well, what if there's a Wallace and Gromit style animation about a daughter and a mom who's pod racing?
Yes. No, Joseph showed me a couple of those episodes.
Yeah. What if this is this ancient samurai Japanese version of Star Wars?
Right.
And then in season 2, they had what if there was a person who was struggling with being a former Sith and now they're good? There was a whole episode about what if there was Star Wars in ancient India? And I was like, this is awesome. Take the stories that I love and just put twists and spins on it. And I think it's so cool.
I do remember that.
A lot of people, again, not to stir the pot, but it tends to be a lot of older people don't like that because they're like, my Star Wars is the only Star Wars, and if you ever change anything about it, it's bad. And I'm like, change it up. Let me see new perspectives and new not just new perspectives, but like new art styles.
Yeah, new
like,
animation styles.
Completely change it up. And a lot of people, I saw some people oversimplify season 1 as the anime season. And I think that's why season 2, they did a bunch of other styles as well, not just like typical like Japanese anime.
Right.
But it's so interesting. And I don't think they will, but it'd be so cool if they did pull from Visions, like a couple of the, that'd be awesome. That'd be so cool. So yeah, pretty much everything after April 25th, 2014 is canon.
There's a page 2.
Yeah. I don't know about Young Jedi Adventures. It's that new kids show. Have you seen the banners for it?
Yes.
I don't know if that's canon. And I did a little research, and most people also don't know if it's canon or not. I doubt it matters, though. And I'm pretty sure they're going to say no. Because to me, it's like on the same level of like a coloring book or like an activity book where it's like, no, it's not canon. I'm not going to say it's not canon, it's for kids, because that's not true. But it's probably not that important. But that is our, or at least my brief history of canon. At least that's the official stance. Do you have an alternative stance on canon?
Sure. Canon's a relative thing when it comes to a fictional world. Mm-hmm. So if some people want to say, no, this is really what happened, and I think all these parts of the story are what really happened, then fine. If that's what you want to believe.
Continuity.
Okay, cool. But if I look at these other things that make a lot more sense and they tell a better story and everything, then I'm like, okay. This is the story I want to go with. You guys can play around with your stuff over there, but this is, for lack of a better term, that's my canon. I like this bunch of things that go together well as a story. So it's fiction. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to make any movies out of it. They should make the Timothy Zahn series into movies. If they don't, they're dumb. But whatever. And the Thrawn character that they probably. The Thrawn character that they wove into at the end of the Ahsoka is so much less than what Thrawn really was.
See, you haven't watched Thrawn in Rebels. And we haven't watched Thrawn as he comes out today in Tales of the Empire. Maybe they do more. He did seem very like, to me was very similar to Tarkin, where it's just
exactly.
upstanding British.
Right.
I'm
a mean guy with no heart.
I talk to you like this.
Yeah.
I don't move the mouth at all. Very, very, very small lips. Admiral Thrawn.
So in Rebels, did Thrawn have any significant abilities that set him apart from other people?
He has abilities? I guess that answers your question. No, in Rebels, he's just an admiral. He's more strategic than usual. He has an unusual amount of cunning and strategy and the ability to predict, but he's not
And how does he do that?
They just showed him that he did it, where people would just ask him questions and he'd be like, well, actually, da-da-da-da-da. They're like, how do you know that? He's like, I just know. Something like that. Does he roll his eyes in the back of his head or something? Does he twitch?
It's not a supernatural thing. It's just his ability to, but what actually, so I guess I won't use this as one of the trivia questions then. No, in the Zahn series,
you're gonna ask me a Zahn-related trivia question?
It depends on how funky your questions got.
I only asked you, so my questions, you at one point in your life have known the answers to. I didn't ask you any niche.
And at one point in your life, you should have known the answer to this.
That's not what I'm saying. That is not what I'm saying.
Okay, no. But Thrawn, what's interesting about Thrawn is able to analyze and predict the actions and reactions and everything of different species by studying their art.
Yeah, he does that in Rebels. Absolutely, he does that in Rebels. Because one of the artists, because Earrings, Sabine Wren, he studies her art. And at one point, I want to say he literally captures Sabine. And he's like, let's talk art together. And she's like, that's weird. But he 100%, yes. That is
a lot of different types. And especially because the Rebels, they're not all humanoids. They're a whole bunch of different types of species. And they're...
Are you talking about Rebels as a generic term and not specifically the TV show Rebels?
the Rebel Alliance.
There we go. Thank you.
Was composed of different
Lots of
worlds
stuff.
and different species and all
Yeah.
that. And so he would pay attention to who are in what positions of power and over what things, and he would very carefully study their art, and then he would be like, okay, I know what buttons to press for this species and for that species to get them to respond in this kind of way. And he was a chess master that would plan 30 moves ahead while everybody else is like, I'm trying to catch up.
Well, yeah,
He's
I'm glad to know that they seem to.
strategically brilliant.
Again, I don't know if Zahn is still alive and if they worked with Zahn personally, but it'd be cool if they did, to be like, hey, we want to use one of your characters. Tell us about him. But I'm glad to know that that wasn't just a choice that they made. That was a very clear, this is something that the character is known for, so let's include it in this children's TV show. But yeah, very much so.
Which, when you're writing a story like that, it's an interesting thing to be able to create a character that is almost omniscient, and yet you're still able to defeat them.
Well, nobody's perfect. You can be force sensitive, but nobody's perfect.
Exactly, but how do you keep letting the good guys kind of win incrementally?
I'm gonna tell you right now.
But still have this guy be almost omniscient and you're like, whoa, and everybody's still like, whoa.
So I'm gonna tell you right now, Rebels, the TV show, is not a show about winning. There's a lot of loss in that show.
Yeah, there's
and
a lot
it's
of...
not, we're always beating him. It is Thrawn has beat us repeatedly. He knows our every move. We don't know how this works because he's not force sensitive. But which is, again, I thoroughly enjoyed Rebels. But it is not a show about winning. It is much darker in tone, and there is a lot of loss, including the death of a very important character, R.I.P. Yeah, shame.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. Trivia time?
Sure. Is that what's next on the agenda?
Yeah. Trivia time.
Bring it on.
All right. So, I have brought trivia for you today. Some of it was inspired by questions from, there's this internet content, I'm not going to call them a content house, an internet channel called Smosh, and they used to have a show called Stan versus the Internet, where they would take one person who's a huge fan of something, and then someone who isn't a fan but just has a laptop, and they'd ask them, like, tricky trivia questions, and if they couldn't guess it, the person on the laptop had, like, 30 seconds to Google it. It was very interesting, but no, I did not put anything here that you, like, 100% have never touched. Like, there's no Visions questions. There's no Ahsoka questions or anything like that. But
I watched Ahsoka.
all the way through?
The series, yeah.
See, that's cool and all, but you don't understand the importance of space whales.
Right.
They're so cool. But we're going to start easy. Right. Question number 1. Name at least 4 lightsaber colors.
So, green, red, blue, and, I don't know, magenta?
Who has magenta? Is there anyone...
Green, red, blue, what else is there?
Is there an actor who very specifically was like, I want this color?
I want teal.
No. There is an actor where the only reason he had a lightsaber that is very unique to him, that no one else has ever had, is because he got on set and he said, I want it this color. And people were like, all right, I'm not going to tell you no. Purple.
Who had a purple
Mace Windu. Samuel L. Jackson. It was like, I want a purple saber.
So that... so disappointing. Samuel L. Jackson is a good actor and is so disappointing, the Mace Windu character.
I would argue in Rebels he is far more interesting and you learn a lot more about him. But alternate colors, I'm not even going to look at the card. White. Ahsoka has white sabers. Yellow. I think at some point Ahsoka has yellow sabers, but yellow is also used by temple guards in some of the Jedi temples. And then this is a bit of a trick answer, but not really. Do you remember the dark saber?
Yeah.
Technically, that is a lightsaber, and it's black.
Right.
So you could answer that too.
It's grayish. It's like charcoal.
I think it's black, and it just has it has an outline, because a 100% black blade with no outline is very difficult for the audience to see. But that's that one. Name a non-human Jedi.
So Ahsoka was a Jedi for a while.
Correct.
So that
Ahsoka could
obviously, Yoda.
Correct. Do you know of any others? What about that one guy whose like head is super tall? You know, that one dude. I can't remember his name. He's not human. You've got Plo Koon. He is the guy. He's like orange and he has a mask. There's Kit Fisto, who is he's like a sea creature and he's got like dreads basically. Oh, there's plenty of them. But those are the ones that I could think of.
Okay.
What?
So my turn to ask some trivia questions.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Are they easy mode? Because I'm starting
I'll
easy.
start you off with easy.
Okay.
You ready? Mm-hmm. In the original Star Wars.
Movies I have not seen in a while, but okay.
That's to your shame. Where was the Rebel base?
This is before it was on Hoth?
Was Hoth in the original film? In Episode 4, A New Hope?
I know people are gonna call me a fake fan, but it's not Naboo, and it's not Coruscant, and it's not Tatooine. Is it the Ewok planet? What is it?
It was the moon on the
Endor?
Orbiting around. No, not around Endor. Yavin 4.
Yeah, I would not have gotten that.
Okay.
Do you have another easy one for me?
Let's see. I just have jotted a few things down here. Okay, fine. Who raised Luke Skywalker?
His uncle and aunt, right?
What were their names?
Didn't he have an Uncle Ben? That's a Spider-Man thing. I know that's a Spider-Man thing. I feel bad, but it was his aunt and uncle. Careful with the sign.
Okay. Yeah. See, and obviously
they drank blue milk. I remember that.
Yeah. Okay.
And they lived underground because it was a desert planet.
Yeah.
Sarah?
No. What was the desert planet?
Tatooine.
Okay. Good.
There's not a whole lot of desert planets in the Star Wars universe that we know of. To my knowledge, the only one we know of is Tatooine.
Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru.
Did he not call Ben Kenobi Uncle Ben?
Old Ben Kenobi.
Old Ben. Okay. Yeah. Old Ben.
Not Uncle Ben.
Dang, that's crazy.
Uncle Ben used to make rice. Okay, press on.
Did you read this?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
It says Star Wars on the back.
Yes, I put stickers on the back of these so we couldn't read them. Like, read through them if you were thinking of reading through them. But anyway.
Wait, let me engage my X-ray vision.
You can read backwards.
Go ahead. Let's go.
If Jedi have Padawans, what do Sith have?
Big toes. No, they have apprentices.
There you go.
Yeah.
Another word is acolyte. I did not know that. I think there's a TV show coming out soon. But yeah, apprentices, which is why earlier I almost said...
There are always two. A master and a...
Yeah. All right, last easy question that I would only get one of the answers to, but Count Dooku's sorry. Count Dooku's live-action actor Christopher Lee is known primarily for two other famous Hollywood roles. Can you name at least one of them?
C. He was in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. He was Saruman.
Yep, that's one of them. The other one might be a little too old for you. It's Count Dooku. He played, it's Count Dracula. He played Count Dracula in a movie.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know if you knew that. But yeah, most people know him as also playing Saruman, which is pretty cool. Shout outs to him. All right, medium level, unless you want to go ahead and give me some.
Yeah, you'd probably, that would be a little bit more challenging. Go ahead.
What planet did Yoda train Luke? Is it Geonosis, Dagobah, Mustafar, or Ryloth? All real planets in the Star Wars universe.
Dagobah, obviously.
Correct. If you're ever wanting to learn about weird planets, look up what happened on Geonosis in Star Wars Clone Wars. Some freaky stuff happened there that was scary. I would not want to. Bleh. It involved parasites that infect your brain and make you be a zombie, like Geonosian worms. It's freaky. Ooh. Anyway, who did Han Solo?
Which there is some kind of parasite that does that to moose.
Oh, I thought you were talking about mad cow disease.
No, I'm trying to remember what it is, but yeah, they
Isn't
work their way
isn't
into
there
a
one
moose's
that-
brain,
a
and then
humans
the moose
too?
start to go crazy. And
Yeah.
whatever.
Dang.
So
Who did Han Solo win the Millennium Falcon from? The Pike
Lando.
clan, Boba Fett, Jango Fett, or our lovely dog over there?
Lando.
Calrissian. Yes.
In a game of what?
See, that's one of the questions later on. But the game was Kashyyyk.
No,
It wasn't Dejarik.
it was not
Oh, it was Sabak.
Sabak.
Well, then I'm gonna take out one of these because one of these was like name a game played in the Star Wars universe. You've got Dejarik, which is also known as Hollow Chess. You've got Sabak,
so
and then you've got
You
Dice. Also, just
you
works.
mentioned the word Kashyyyk. What is Kashyyyk? Do you
Isn't
know?
that the homeworld of the Wookiee?
Yes.
Yeah, my bad. It's not a game. It's the homeworld of the Wookiee, or one of them.
No.
The original
Wookiees
one?
That's where they're from. They're from Kashyyyk.
Yes. Yes.
What kind of a world is it?
It's a forest world. They're that hairy. They're not going to live in a desert or in mountain. Well,
Yes.
I could see them doing some
they're
Sasquatchy
gigantic.
type stuff and being in mountains. But no, it's like forests and tree houses. It's very similar to the Ewok world.
So where does that show up?
Kashyyyk?
Yeah, in what realm of stuff that you've seen before?
Oh, and multiple times in Clone Wars they do missions to Kashyyyk.
Oh, okay.
And I want to say in Rebels, they might have gone there to get a young Wookiee, not an older one. But what is a
In the Timothy Zahn series, there's a plot to capture Leia's Force-sensitive twins, and they are
Luke and Leia? No, wait.
Han and Leia get married. They have twins first, and both of the twins are Force-sensitive, and then they have a son after that.
So
Anakin.
Kylo? Oh, wait.
So, yeah. So they have 3 kids, and
Oh, this is in the Timothy's outfit. Yeah.
in the real canon.
Right.
So anyway, there's a Thrawn enlists the help of this clone of the Emperor, this mad clone of the Emperor, and he wants a Jedi to form and to shape in his own whatever, and so he wants one of.
At some point, did they explain
Leia's
how the Emperor got cloned?
Yeah.
Or is that just whatever?
Yeah.
Okay.
You don't find out that he's a. Oh no, it's not the Emperor's clone. I'm sorry. He's a clone of a Jedi Master that vanished.
Do you know the name of this Jedi Master? Is it Sifo Dyas?
No.
Dang.
Joris Kaboth.
I'm not familiar with
Anyway,
that.
so after multiple kidnapping attempts on the kids, Chewie takes Leia and the kids to Kashyyyk to keep them safe there.
You know
then
what I
something
also...
very, very interesting happens.
You know what I also realized is probably not canon? And again, you wouldn't know about this until you saw on Disney Plus. Did you know that there were films that were created in like the 80s that are not Lucas films, but there's like one about these kids and they just hang out with Ewoks. And there was
the Star
like
Wars Christmas special?
No. It's outside of that. We don't speak of that. But there are these like random movies or like little TV specials or something. And I don't think they're considered canon, but they're called like vintage Star Wars.
Yeah.
Apparently there was like a TV show for a little bit. And I didn't know about it until I was scrolling through one day. And I was like, what are these tiny little people in fursuits doing? This is very, very strange. But the next medium question is, what is a parsec? If you want multiple choice, I can give it to you.
So it's a way of it's a measure of time.
Yeah, a unit of interstellar measurement.
Yeah.
Correct. Coolio.
So the Millennium Falcon could make the Kessel Run in less than
12?
how many?
Parsecs? Yeah.
Good.
All right. I did not realize that the sticker I put on this, someone has to do with the question. But I believe
Bantha.
this is in 5?
It's a bantha.
This is a bantha. Yes. At the end of Sithinator, Doofenshmirtz famously says, Darth Vader can kiss my bantha. And I think that's funny. But the question is, what creature did Han Solo put Luke in to save him from freezing when he went out to Snowy on Hoth or whatever?
Yeah.
And at one point he goes, Luke, something or other, your blank is freezing. Your blank is gonna freeze.
Tauntaun.
Yes, it was a tauntaun.
Do you want an interesting bantha story?
Uh-oh. Go ahead.
Years ago, when we were, I don't know if chasing is the right word, but stalking pirates off the Horn of Africa.
It was your job.
It was my job.
I was going to say, we need to let them know you weren't just doing this for fun. He was in the military. This was a military operation. You were supposed to watch Yemenis pirates? Somali pirates, my bad.
This will be the unclassified version of the story. So
I was going to say, careful.
We
don't want a red dot to appear.
We were simultaneously monitoring multiple pirate camps in real time and watching them. And then every evening, the officers and the captain would get together, and the intelligence officer would give us an intelligence brief about here's what's going on in each of the camps. Here's what's going on with the different traffic through the area, and with different vessels that had been captured and that were at anchor near the pirate camps and were in negotiations for hostages and ransoms and different things like that. It turned out that one of the pirate camps looked amazingly like the village of the Sand People in one of the episodes. And so the intel officer happened to be a good friend of mine. And so in the evening brief, as he was going through slides of, hey, this is what we saw. So he actually inserted...
I don't know how you did this without Photoshop, because Photoshop absolutely did not exist at this time.
Back in the 1700s, yes, we were in sailing ships, swashbuckling our ways around.
This was like 2011, right?
Which was ancient times to you.
That's over a decade ago.
Okay, Photoshop has been around for a while, too, Joelle.
Okay.
Anyway, so he inserted, as he was showing several clips of the pirate camps, he inserted a clip of the village of the Sand People. Mm-hmm. In there, and was going on, and nobody noticed anything. And then he said, and we did notice something rather interesting about this one, and he zoomed in on one of the houses, and there's a bantha next to it.
All right.
It was funny to watch. I was watching because he told me about it beforehand. Mm-hmm. He was like, do you think I should do this? I don't know,
just
man.
Make it fun.
Am I going to get in trouble for this? I was like, do it. Just do it.
Do it.
Do the RAR.
Yeah.
So I was watching people's reaction, and just the look of, what it's priceless.
Nobody caught on. It was like,
no, everybody was like,
hey, that's a
there
bantha.
was a couple of people that were like, oh, okay, it's a bantha.
Yeah.
But yeah, not everybody was a Star Wars fan.
Interesting. All right.
Sometimes we have fun if it's boring out there and we haven't gotten to capture any pirates lately.
Okay. Would you like to ask me any other Star Wars trivia questions before I get into the hard ones?
Are we? Is this the last bit of the
yes.
podcast? Okay. Hard. Okay.
It's I just did 4 each.
Okay.
That's all.
Wow. Go ahead.
What you mean, wow?
Just rock on.
Anyway. Oh, sorry. I did 3 each.
Okay.
All right. You have a question for me?
Here's my question for you.
Mm-hmm.
How do you say, or what was the Star Wars movie called in French? It's a literal transition.
I used to know this. I don't know why my brain is telling me égalité. That is not true. But it literally means like the wars of space or the wars of the stars.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly.
But I can't think of the words. Les guerres?
Yes.
It's not d'espace.
No.
I don't remember what star is in French. I remember in Spanish
Étoile. Guerre des étoiles.
Guerre des étoiles. Okay.
Yeah. I remember seeing the title one time, and I was like, oh, Star Wars.
Yeah, the War of the Stars. Yes.
Okay, good.
What is Thrawn's full name? Because it's not Thrawn, and I recently learned that.
Yeah, it
is.
is.
You don't have to spell it, because it's very difficult to spell.
Yeah. I did know this a while back.
Hint, it starts with an M.
Mithrandir.
Close. It's very close.
Yeah, it is something
Mithranrudo. Mithranurudo.
Yeah.
It's very long. What metal is Mandalorian armor made out of?
Beskar.
Bam.
Why was that a hard one?
Because not a lot of people pay attention to that. And they just be like, it's just metal. All right. This is going to sound like a hard question. Wrong franchise. The question is, what is the lowest rated Star Wars film ever on Rotten Tomatoes? This is a film that you have seen, and you have seen multiple times.
The lowest rated one?
The lowest rated one.
Episode 3.
No.
It should be.
I disagree because of the answer to this. I agree with this answer. My hint to you next is it is not one of the Star Wars 1 through 9 films. We have this film in our possession upstairs on a DVD. It's the 2008 Clone Wars movie.
Oh.
It is the lowest rated Star Wars, lower than all of them.
Right?
Yeah, I did. But quality-wise, the animation is real rough, especially compared to like the later seasons.
How did I not know that we have that?
We watched it so many times. It's the one where Jabba's kid or nephew gets kidnapped.
Yeah, okay.
And it's the first time that Ahsoka comes to Anakin. Yeah, so the
I never watched the whole thing. I mean, I'd like walk in and you guys were watching.
Rough. The animation is rough.
Oh, okay.
And it is not. A long way. It's not the best written movie. So I fully understand, and I'm like, yeah, it's a rough one. It's important because it sets up a wonderful series, but
here's a good question for you then.
Ugh.
After the first 3 movies, outside of the first 3 movies, what would you say? What would be your favorite movie after the first 3? I'm not going to ask you about the first 3 because that would, if you had the wrong answer there, then.
What my favorite of the first 3 is?
No. So episodes 4, 5, and 6. Let's take that out of the equation.
Yeah.
Of the other movies that have been made.
I thoroughly enjoyed Solo, and I thoroughly enjoyed
Solo was good.
Rogue One.
I heartily okay. I'm done there. Good.
The 7, 8, and 9, controversial opinion. I don't think they are garbage. I know people who fully go like, anytime they think of them, and I'm like, I don't think they're
an interesting character.
Horrible. I have my nitpicks?
I don't like what they did with Luke.
Of course.
Was kind of what?
Yeah, of course I have my nitpicks of them. No, I don't believe that they are again, critically acclaimed and no, but I don't think they're horrible. Okay. But I thoroughly enjoyed Solo, and I thoroughly enjoyed Rogue.
Last question.
Rogue One.
What was Yoda's last name?
He doesn't have a last name.
It's Lehihu, as in. You gotta throw a dad joke in there every now and then. Breathe deeply. And on that note.
Lovely. Well.
Mission accomplished.
We can close things off with what is something you would like to see in the future of Star Wars?
I probably have already answered that.
Oh, you want the Timothy Zahn books to be adapted into films?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fantastic character. So Thrawn isn't the only amazing character. Mara Jade, wow, interesting character.
Isn't there like an old wizard kind of guy? Wizards don't exist, but you know what I mean. There's like an ancient sage of some kind. He's like old and has a stringly beard or something.
That's the clone of the Jedi Master.
Oh, my bad.
And then there's another guy that's sort of a Lando Calrissian-ish character, but he's much more interesting. He's got a whole network of sort of smugglers and different things that he's really, really cool character. Anyway.
I would like to see a
life-size Jabba plush toy.
Jabba plush toy, which is a reference I bet none of you are gonna get. The Jabba plush toy with, what's the line? With something.
But you could probably turn Joseph's giant beanbag
into a Jabba plush toy. Yeah. Totally. Massive. I would like to see in the Star Wars future, you would think as a musical theater nerd, I'd say a musical. I don't want to see a Star Wars musical. If any were to come out, I would be very skeptical. Did you know there was a Lord of the Rings musical in 2005?
No.
It didn't do very well.
Okay.
Although I want to say it might have gotten revamped recently. I'd have to double check. I would love to see a darker, almost like Sith focused kind of series or movie. I am a huge fan of Maul. So give me more Maul. Give me, like, imagine an entire movie or series set on the planet of Dathomir. You could deal with the Dathomir males, which is like Maul and, for those of you who know Clone Wars, Savage Opress and all of that. And then you can deal with the Dathomir women on that planet who are the Night Sisters. They're like witches and they're like super cool or whatever. It's giving Bene Gesserit kind of, sort of. Like an entire something focusing on Dathomir I think would be cool. Just something like darker in tone would be interesting. And then what if we had a Star Wars movie or TV show with no humans? Like, give me Doctor Who level costumes and prosthetics, like, or it's Avatar or whatever. Like, it's just all people in costume. Make it be in a different language. Like, really push the boundary of, like...
It could be in a different language. Okay.
Like, world building.
So,
like,
there's a great question.
Put me somewhere else.
What is the name of the language that most people are speaking?
Common. Basic, sorry. Basic, not common. It's basic. Yeah. I think common is used in a different franchise. But yeah, it's basic. I don't remember that ever being said in a movie.
Yes, it was in the first.
Someone was just like, "You speak basic so well."
In the first one, when Luke and his uncle were negotiating to buy droids, they were talking about trying to find one that speaks basic. They also needed one that speaks Bocce and speaks it's a different language on Tatooine.
Bocce is not the language of the Jawa people.
No.
I believe it's just Jawa.
Yeah.
A very, very strange people. I don't quite understand them. Do they have faces? Are they robots? I don't know what they are.
So
I
if
just
you
know
remember,
that they...
if you remember the lady that ran the kind of chop
She
shop,
said she dated a Jawa, which I don't even want to know.
Anyway.
I don't even want to know what that's like.
All right. Let's go ahead and land this spacecraft.
I mean, our Lando is very, very fast asleep, which I'm quite surprised at. But I kind of hoped he would make his presence known. But yes, we do have a dog named Lando, and he wears a Chewbacca collar, and he used to have like little tags or whatever on his collar. But yeah, May the 4th be with you all. Go out and celebrate however you like. Feel free to tell us about your favorite pieces of Star Wars media down in the comments below. What are things you like? What are things you don't like? Also, feel free to like and subscribe, and also tell us more subjects that you're interested in hearing us talk about.
Like cornhole.
I can't talk about cornhole. I don't know much about it. I don't know enough about it. I can tell you that it's a thing. It's real.
Okay.
But yeah, May the 4th be with you all. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye. Please mind the gap.